Today, I want to share with you a few tips that are going to help you with your mobility in everyday life. As we get older, we tend to become less mobile because of the way we are moving in our everyday life. We tend to sit in one position. If we work out, we tend to do very similar workout designs, and we're not moving like we did as children. If you think about yourself as a child, you may remember that you were running around, jumping on things, jumping off of things, rolling on the ground, twisting and turning and moving your body in all different positions. But as we get older, we stop playing, we stop doing those things for fun, and we tend to move in a more patterned way where we're doing the same things throughout the day. Maybe you work all day, you're sitting behind a desk, you're sitting when you eat, you're sitting on your drive to and from work, and then if you go to exercise, you're sitting on a bike and doing a spin class or something like that. That movement, those movements are very similar throughout the day. So you will tend to have certain achy joints, tension, pain in your body. It's more from an overuse of being in the same position over and over and over again. So mobility helps you work on decreasing pain, increasing movement throughout those joints, and can help with overall strength and mobility, stability, all of these things. What happens is people will see videos of these fancy mobility drills and get overwhelmed. Or you may think like, okay, I now have exercise to do, I have cardio I have to do, I have strength I have to do, now I have to add in mobility work and then corrective exercises, and the list gets longer and longer and longer, and we start to feel like we can't do all of it, so therefore we're not going to do any of it. So today I want to share with you some tips that are going to help you get mobility from your ankles to your hips to your thoracic, mid-back area, and shoulders. These are exercises that you can do every day in your everyday life without having to add a mobility exercise to your program. So we are first going to talk about our feet. It is so important that we get more mobile within our feet. Our feet are our foundation. They are what helps to support us in everyday life. If you are dealing with achy, tight, rigid feet, you may be dealing with knee pain, hip pain, incontinence, pelvic floor problems, and even up into the shoulder. So it is really important to have strong feet and mobile feet. When we put our feet in shoes all day, the shoe is creating stability, which decreases the opportunity for our foot to be mobile, and doesn't allow our foot to learn how to be stable itself. So then the shoe is doing all of the work that your foot should be doing. Our foot is a sensory organ, and it can tell our body where it is in space. So it is a proprioceptor, and it's providing a lot of information to our brain about what we're standing on, how we should move onto the surface that we're standing on. If you've ever walked on gravel, you will immediately know what I'm talking about when I talk about a proprioceptor. You're not going to walk quickly across the gravel. You're going to take it slow. You're going to be moving through the joints in your feet slowly to safely move without hurting your feet. So let's give our feet some love and provide it with some mobility work. The first thing that I would recommend you do is to get toe separators. These are things that help separate the toes. You can find them on Amazon. They could be known as like yoga toes. You can wear them as socks. You can intertwine a sock through your toes. You can use the things that you place in between your toes, like if you're doing your toenails, like a pedicure, like little pedicure pads that you put in between your toes. You can use those as well to work on separating the toes. I like the toe separators or the sock separate, like the yoga toes, because you can walk around like that. Just make sure you understand that just like with everything, you want to move into it slowly. So maybe about 10 minutes tops. And then once you start to feel more comfortable wearing them, you can start wearing them for an extended period of time. So that would be the first thing that you're going to do, is wear toe separators and get barefoot. Also, get barefoot. Move around in everyday life barefooted. But understand that our feet are designed to be moving on natural surfaces. So if your house is tiled, this can create some tension and discomfort in the feet. So if you spend any time outside, get barefoot outside for a little bit. If you have carpeted flooring, barefoot is okay. It's not quite as intense, but there usually is like a concrete flooring underneath. So you're just gonna have to play with that and see what feels right for you. But get barefoot, even if it's just sitting down and wiggling your toes and things like that throughout the day, and then making sure to wear those toe separators. So we are going to start with some toe taps, and I'm gonna move up so you can see my feet. So the first thing that I would recommend doing is just start tapping your feet on the floor. You can do this while you're sitting, watching TV, eating dinner, anything like that. You can listen to music, whatever you want to do, where you can just practice tapping your foot a little bit throughout the day. Make sure that you notice what is one side doing compared to the other. I know that this side is harder for me to tap than this side. So maybe that's going to mean I'm going to spend a little bit more time tapping this side in everyday life. The other thing you can do is work on tapping where you're turning out and turning in. This is ankle mobility. Try not to use your knee because that would be a hip movement. Try to keep your knee fairly still. It will move a little bit to make it more ankle work. And then you can tap in and out here. Notice what that feels like and then do the other side. The key here is just to notice a difference between both sides. If you may not have the range of motion that I have. What you're looking at is what is your range of motion on the right compared to your range of motion on the left, right? That is going to help you determine where you might lack some mobility, which may then be drawn up the line into the knees or the hips. Might notice some hip pain because you have a lack of mobility, say on the opposite ankle, whatever it may be. Those are things for you to focus on. We're not looking at how mobile we are compared to anyone else. We really need to focus on how mobile we are compared to ourselves. If you are working on toe taps, you may notice that you feel this muscle right here next, like right along the shin. That is working on strengthening this muscle. If you deal with shin splints, this is going to help work on strengthening the muscle. You also probably would want to work on stretching out that calf as well to help. The next thing is rigidity of the foot. So our foot, not only should it be able to move like forward and back, it needs to move from side to side. So you need to be able to move into this, what we call overpronation, over supination. So this movement here, you want to be able to move your foot. It should not be rigid. It should be kind of pliable and mobile throughout the foot itself. You can do this by just kind of wringing the foot out, is what I would call this. Just kind of twisting the foot. And notice what, again, is one side different than the other side. That's what you're really looking for here. You can even do it standing, where you might kind of just roll to the outside of the foot and the inside of the foot and see, can you move that? When we walk, we do move through a slight supination into a pronation. So we want to have this movement here of the foot. We don't want it rigid. The other thing is toe mobility. So if you have worked with me before, you will know, or listened to some of my other videos, you will know that the big toe has a lot to do with the pelvic floor. So if you are dealing with tension and tightness in your big toe, you may also be dealing with incontinence. So we want to work on increasing the range of motion or mobility within this big toe. If it is rigid, it may not move very far. So 2 little things that you can do is these stretches where you're going to put the weight on the toe and just see how far forward you can move that foot. And this is going to, if it's tight, it may hurt a little bit. So just be gentle. It's just like with any other stretch. I like to press down through my foot and then work on the mobility, because it just kind of makes it a little bit easier. And then the other thing you can do is like a top of the foot stretch. If you're doing a top of the foot stretch, make sure you're not going out here where it's not affecting the toe at all. You want that big toe to feel the stretch as well. So those are a couple of things that you can do for the feet to help with mobility. The next thing we are going to work on is our pelvis. So when we think about like going up the line of the body, the ankles should be mobile, the knees should be stable, the hips should be mobile. You should be able to move your pelvis around. The easiest way to practice this in everyday life is to dance. Dance, move your hips, shake your hips. Hula hooping would be something fun. You think to yourself, I haven't hula hooped since I was a kid. Ding ding, like seriously, can we go out and grab a hula hoop and start hula hooping again? It'll get your pelvis more mobile. I'll show you another exercise as well that's going to help with your pelvis. But if you are one that maybe you're struggling with that sit all the way down to the floor and stand up, one of the key things that I mention in my sit to stand is mobile pelvis. You have to be able to move your pelvis forward and back to be able to go through that movement pattern of getting all the way down and standing all the way up. So you want to make sure that your pelvis is mobile. If you are dealing with incontinence or pelvic floor problems like tension, tightness, a lot of it has to do with how mobile your hips are. Even some diastasis recti problems, some low back tension, shoulder tension, knee, because if our pelvis is not mobile, we're going to use another area for mobility. So it might mean your knees are mobile or your spine becomes mobile. So get more mobility within the pelvis to protect those areas that shouldn't be so mobile. Exercises that you can do, like I mentioned, dance, move around, do things like that. The other thing that you can do is work on these, Katie Bowman calls them click clacks. They're just like a posterior tilt and an anterior pelvic tilt. So all you're going to do is think about pushing. So you're in this position here. You can do this seated. It does not have to be on the floor. So depending on your mobility will depend on what you want to do. But you can do this seated just as easily. Just put your feet on the floor, and we're going to think about pushing our feet away from us without pushing them away from us, okay? So we're going to imagine pushing our feet away, and we're going to round through our low back. We are not going to round through our upper back to create that movement because we're trying to move our pelvis, not our mid back. So we're going to push away, use that low back, rounding that pelvis. And then imagine pulling your heels towards you. You'll feel those hamstrings fire on, and you'll lift up nice and straight. So if you're looking at this part of my back, you're going to see a rounding of it and then a straightening of it. It's a little movement, that's okay. And you just work on rounding and straightening the pelvis. I don't want too much movement in that area, moving forward and back when I'm on the floor. Then the other thing is just you can do little circles. If you have a stability ball that you can sit on, these are great exercises to practice on the stability ball because they allow for more movement. That is another great way. So if we're thinking about what we can do in our everyday life to get more mobile within our hips, a great way to do this is use a stability ball at your desk if you are working at a desk, or use a stability ball when you're watching TV in the evening and just move your hips around on it. You can go forward and back on it. You can do circles. So dance and use that stability ball when you're at work or you're watching TV, things like that. The next thing that we are going to pay attention to is mobility of our thoracic area. So up above the core, up into your rib cage. So rib cage, back, we're gonna move into the scapula in a minute, but this area and up. We can work on these movements. The biggest thing that you can do to help is work on rotation. We want to rotate through the upper part of the body, not the lower part of the body. That's where low back pain, you might deal with low back pain if you're using the lower back to twist rather than using the upper back to twist. With twisting, one way that you can practice this in everyday life is by putting toilet paper on the back of your toilet. So instead of having the fancy toilet roll, it's not fancy, it's normal, the toilet roll out in front of you, just twist to grab, and you'll see, oh my gosh, your mobility is lacking. The mobility through our thoracic area is probably one of, I'm going to say the tighter spot because that's where I'm tightest, so, but that doesn't mean you're tightest there. But it is an area of a lot of tension, tightness. Because of this rounded forward position, we've lost a lot of rotational mobility through this area. So just put your toilet paper on the back of your seat and work on reaching behind you. Make sure to not only go to one side, go to both sides to work on increasing that rotation. The other thing that you can do is maybe don't rely so heavily on those backup, your backup camera. Try to rotate around as you're backing up. That's another way that we can rotate that we tend to not use like we used to. I'll show you one extra exercise for that as well if you are interested in doing something additional in your day. You can just go onto hands and knees, and then I like to place my hand, I always place my fingertips behind my ear because I tend to notice that when I tell people to place their hand behind their head, they're starting to yank on their head rather than being easy. And I want this to be a movement through the thoracic area, not you pulling on your neck and creating that movement a little bit higher up. Okay, so we're gonna place our hand behind our ear. We're gonna drop down to the floor. I'm not bending my elbow to create this movement. I'm dropping down, and then I'm pressing up through my hand, pushing away and trying to open up here. You will probably notice this is slightly uncomfortable, maybe for you. It definitely is for me. So down and up. This is an area that I probably need to spend a little bit more time in. So make sure to do both sides. The key here is to notice the difference. If one side feels tighter than the other, that is an area you need to make sure you are working on. The last thing we want to work on is our shoulder mobility. So many of us, as we get older, we tend to use our arms less. You may use your arms, but how often do you have your arms up over your head, doing things up here? As a child, you probably were doing a lot more movements where your arms were up over your head, even if it was just playing, going across the monkey bars, swinging on things. You know, if you think about all the things that you did as a kid, jumping up and reaching for things high up, these are things that are very natural when we are younger. And then as we get older, we tend to not do so much. And then we get really tight within this area. And you may notice that when you go to raise your arm up, rather than letting the scapula, so the shoulder blade should move along that back rib cage. But what happens is we tend to get tighter in this area, and then we compensate by lifting up our shoulder rather than allowing that shoulder blade to lift up and move. So what can we do to start releasing some of this? So the easiest thing to do is get your arms up overhead. What I tend to notice when we're getting our arms up overhead, you will be up here. What you can do to kind of notice that, because a lot of times you might have your arms up overhead and you don't realize that your shoulders are up near your ears. I do this with my clients a lot. I'll be like, okay, now we're going to lift our shoulders up near our ears, and we're going to lift them up, and then you let them relax, and then you will notice the difference. So you can do that now. Bring your arms up, lift your shoulders towards your ears, and then let them relax. And you might notice that they dropped a little bit further than what they were before. So that would be the first thing, is just work on getting your arms up overhead a little bit more throughout the day. You can even practice. I wouldn't think about pulling your shoulder blades down. I don't want you to think about that, but more just to raise the shoulders to the ear and relax, and raise the shoulders to the ears and relax. So something like that. A way that you can do this in your everyday life is, you know, those pull-up bars that you can just buy and you put them on your door frame. Get one of those. Now, listen, if you get one of those, don't do what I did the other day. I stood on the, I don't know what I was doing. So it's in my, it used to be in our laundry room, and it was facing one way. So every time I would walk out, you could hang from it for a second and then you walk out. Well, I did it on the way in and I almost fell and broke my back. So don't do that. Make sure that you're opposite of the side that it's hanging from. And you're not doing a pull-up. All you're doing is using it as a hanging bar. You can just hang. And these are ones, you can buy the one like I did where it kind of connects to the door frame, but there are also ones, we have one that's heading out towards our garage out as well, that just is always there. It's just a bar into the door frame. So you can have that as well. And as you just walk through there, just kind of allow yourself to relax into it. My feet are still on the floor when I'm doing this, and I just kind of relax, and I can play with my shoulders lifting up and letting them relax, and just kind of breathe and see if I can relax into it, see what happens in my shoulders. This is a great exercise. If you can do this every day, if you end up buying one and practice it every day, it is great. If you never do a pull-up, that's okay. Like, just getting your arms up over your head and relaxing is going to help work on that shoulder mobility and keeping it mobile, moving nice and supple so that it doesn't get tensed up and tight. So those are the things that I would recommend you do. I gave you more than 4 things to do, but tap your feet, work through that ball of the foot up into that big toe to stretch that big toe out. Hips, work on dancing, shaking those hips around, work on rotating, and then work on bringing your arms up overhead. All of these are simple things that you can do in your everyday life that will help you become more mobile. If you would like to work with me, you can head to formfitonline.com, click on the Work With Me tab. I do have a Move Better bundle. It is a Move Better, Feel Better program. We're going to get you feeling better in your body by helping you move more in everyday life and through all your joints, helping you with mobility while also helping you to lose the weight. If you are a mom in midlife, that is who I am here to support. And feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And if you like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you back here next Wednesday.